Welcome back to the Justice Factor special on the life and times of Nelson Mandela. We are now joined by former Umkhonto weSizwe combatant and national chairperson of the Military Veterans Association, Kebby Maphantsoe. With him is Ambassador Lindiwe Zulu, a former MK combatant and now President Zuma's special envoy to Zimbabwe. Guys, welcome to the show. Lindiwe, let me start with you. Fantastic outfit, but I was struck by this picture that you brought with you. Tell us a bit about it, and our viewers can see it at home. I see Nelson Mandela there, I see Winnie Mandela, but what's the history of this picture?
That's the first time that Comrade Nelson Mandela visited the camps after he was released from prison. That was just one of the most glorious moments for us as
What were the camps? Tell us, what were the camps? What were you doing
This
there?
was our camp in Uganda, where we were doing our training. But of course, we must recall that by the time he came to our camps in Uganda, we were now already involved in negotiations. So in those camps, there was both military training, but also there was already education that was taking place because the leadership of the ANC at the time thought that it's time to prepare our comrades for coming back home so that they can come back with something.
And you were in this camp?
I was in this camp, and I was the photographer in the camp, and because I'm a journalist by profession. So, and as you can see, at that time, at least we had an opportunity to take pictures. By the way, in the other camps, like our camps in Uganda, we could not take pictures. And I also was in the camp in Uganda. I started a journal in Angola, but we couldn't take any pictures, of course, for security reasons.
What was it like for you when you saw Nelson Mandela? You know, by the time you and your family went into exile, Nelson Mandela was in prison.
It was electrifying because here was the man that we had revered for a very long time. Here was the man that we had read books about. We had seen snippets of little movies around about him, and we admired him, and he kept us motivated as we were in the camps. And the fact that he came out of prison, we were very excited that he was coming to the camps, because we never thought he would come to the camps. We thought that we would only see him when we get back home, coming back from exile.
And for you, what was it like the first time Nelson Mandela walked out of jail, the first time you saw him?
We were together with Comrade Lindiwe in Uganda when Nelson Mandela was released. There was an event where at the ground where we had a moment where we had a 21-gun salute in celebrating the release of Nelson Mandela. In fact, this photo, when he came to Uganda, he was not well. He had a flu. And I remember Comrade, the late Kebby, said, comrades, the commander-in-chief is not going to address you standing. He will be seated down because he's sick. He defied. Comrade Kebby said, I cannot address soldiers seated down unless they will punish me and kill me. So he defied and addressed us standing up.
Yeah, it must have been, for people like me who grew up inside South Africa, for you guys in the camps in exile, in the 1980s in particular, when you know, it was destabilized South Africa internally, but for you outside, the idea of coming back seemed so far away. What was the meaning of Mandela for you? Was he a figure that sustained you? I know that inside South Africa, for many of us, it was the Release Mandela campaign, and it sustained a lot of anti-apartheid movement.
Of course, we knew exactly what he was going through in prison, because we knew what was happening in the prisons and the kind of harsh life that they lived. And because they had to face the enemy on day-to-day basis, it was a little bit different, because being in the camp, the enemy is so far away. Of course, in Angola, we can't say the enemy was very far away, because the regime was able to try and infiltrate through UNITA rebels. And so many a times we were attacked in our camps by the UNITA rebels, and we had to fight back, and we had to protect our camps at the time. So Mandela for us was like, if he can be in prison that long, and we are out here, we have to take a mission that is being given to us. An opportunity for us was, he started Umkhonto weSizwe. He was the commander-in-chief. And therefore, at all times for us, the commander-in-chief was there alive and giving us the courage to continue the struggle until we came to 1994 when South Africa became free.
Kebby Maphantsoe, let me ask you this question. The ANC, I mean, by the time the Umkhonto we Sizwe was formed on December 16, 1961, you know, it was led by Luthuli, a man of peace, a man of the Bible, of the cloth. Many ANC leaders had been peaceful people. What were the conditions that drove Nelson Mandela and others to decide to go to war? Kebby?
You know, when Nelson Mandela influenced the leadership of the African National Congress to adopt the armed struggle, it was because of most of the leaders did not support the armed struggle. But they had to send Comrade Moses Kotane to speak to Comrade Albert Luthuli to convince him to say, we need to take up arms. By then, in fact, when the armed struggle started, the ANC had not yet adopted the armed struggle. So when it started, it's then the ANC started adopting the armed struggle after. But again, Moses Kotane went to the ANC to say, you know, if your son has made a mistake, you don't punish him, you correct him. Here is a child is born. He is your child, you must take care of. That is why Umkhonto we Sizwe was then taken into the African National Congress.
Lindiwe, yeah, go ahead.
Can I also just say that, you know, the African National Congress at some point has something which is written in history, where it says that comes a time in the life of any nation where there remains no two choices, to either submit or fight. And that time had come for the African National Congress to pick up the fight. And that is when the ANC, through Comrade Nelson Mandela and others, decided the time to fight had now come.
I'd like to talk about the feelings of those leaders when we come back from the ad break, because it's quite amazing that they took that decision and it took so long to conduct the struggle. After the break, we continue our discussion on Nelson Mandela and MK with Lindiwe Zulu and Kebby Maphantsoe.
News that moves. ENCA.com.